What's up, movie lovers? I'm Mike, and this is Gotta Love Them Movies. Oh, you guys, welcome back to another edition of Gotta Love Them Movies. I'm your host, Mr. Mike Brown. This is your daily dose of movie news. And you guys, if you were watching the show yesterday, you would know that there was no show. I did an editorial about returning back to the theme parks down in Orlando and kind of what my thoughts were about that. So if you want to hear some of my thoughts about returning back to Universal Studios and going to theme parks in general, go on over to the YouTube channel and check that out. But today, I think we've got a pretty interesting lineup of things to talk about and an even more interesting person to help us talk about some of these things. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest on the show today is a very good friend of mine. We met in the improv festival circuit. We've been circling each other's careers for a while. I'm just going to let him pretty much introduce himself as I am about to introduce one of his credits. He is the producer and co-founder of the Chicago Improv Festival, which has lasted for over 20 years. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for a very good friend of mine, Mr. Jonathan Pitts! Woo, woo, woo!
Hi, everybody. I just want to let you know that I'm drinking black tea. This may look like it's whiskey, and today might be a day to drink whiskey, but I'm drinking black tea.
That was actually going to be one of my questions. Like, what is this bottle there? You got doing some day drinking going on.
Actually, sweetened iced tea. So caffeine is about as jammed up as I get. It is really great to see you, Mike, as always. You are a wonderful person and a wonderful talent, and I've been glad to be at improv festivals with you in Scotland and in Alaska.
True, yeah.
And in Chicago, and oddly enough, never seen you in New York, even though that's your home city. To everybody else besides doing that, I'm also the creator and producer of the College Improv Tournament. And up until COVID, for about 2.25 years, I traveled around the world teaching and performing improv, and I taught and performed in 24 countries and 60 cities. Everything on Zoom like everybody else.
Wow. Like, Jonathan, your career is one of those careers that I am just, first of all, I'm slack-jawed about, and like totally awe-inspired, but mostly jealous. I look at your career and I just say, like, this is the guy that I want to be. Like, if I can pattern my life, my career after any person, I always go to you. Huge pat on the back to you, sir. You've accomplished so much in little time or a lot of time. I don't know how you want to quantify that, but I mean, you're a master at your craft. You're a master at what you do. Oh, you also left out the Honolulu improvaganza. I think that's where we first met.
Improvaganza in Honolulu. Yes.
So great.
3 or 4 festivals we've been in together.
Yeah, we just keep crossing paths. Anyway, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me today and chalking movies and movie news. And before we jump into our movie news, first I need to let you guys know how to subscribe to us on YouTube. Go over to youtube.com, type in Gotta Love Them Movies. In the top right-hand corner of the screen, you're going to see a little red subscribe button. Go and click on that subscribe button. What clicking on that subscribe button does is it helps us to widen our subscriber base. But Mike, you say, we're watching this show on Facebook Live. Why do we have to go over to YouTube and click on your YouTube channel? Well, thank you, Franco. That is a great question. Thanks for asking. It's really rather simple. Here's the thing, guys. With the more subscribers we have on the channel, the more videos get watched. And with the more watched content on the channel, I get to qualify for ad revenue. And with ad revenue, I get to make the show my full-time job. So I very much appreciate you going over and clicking on that subscribe button. And of course, as soon as we hit 1,000 subscribers, this show will be moving from Facebook to YouTube, so just something to be aware of and be on the lookout for. All right, guys, so with all that down and out of the way, it's time to take a little bit of movie news.
What?
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 All right, you guys, and our first bit of movie news we're going to jump right into here. It's a little sad. You may have heard about this. This happened over the weekend. It's kind of it's one of those things that isn't incredibly shocking, but at the same time, it's one more thing to chalk up to. Thanks a lot, 2020. The late, great Sean Connery has passed away at the age of 90 years old. Now, Sean Connery has an incredible pantheon of work behind him. Of course, I don't know if he's best well known, but he's extremely well known for his work playing the titular role of James Bond. He was the one that really popularized the character. He's the one that many people still consider to be the best James Bond we've ever had. There have been 6 James Bonds officially. There have been a few other James Bond characters that have gone by the title. But yeah, Sean Connery is the one that's kind of regarded as the best. If you've watched the show at all, you know that I don't share those same thoughts or feelings. But Jonathan, I'd like to kick it over to you for a second. I know you're a big movie fan. Every now and again, we talk movies and in movie news from time to time. Where do you stand on Sean Connery being the best James Bond? And what are some of your other favorite performances of his?
I actually liked Sean Connery better in the movies that wasn't James Bond. Like The Hunt for Red October,
Yeah.
the Al Capone one that he did in
The
Chicago. I
Untouchables.
forgot
The
the name of it.
Untouchables, yeah. He won an Oscar for that.
Yeah.
Best Supporting Actor.
Right? I felt like and also even the movies with no, not Shaun of the Dead, but movies where he is oh man, I'm blanking. There's so much going on in the world today that part of my brain is distracted, so I feel like a computer that's overwhelmed.
Your processor is at
really
half speed right now.
half speed. Yeah. The movies that he did for Steven Spielberg.
Oh, Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I felt like once he had the freedom to get away from the James Bond character, he was able to become much more the actor that he was. Whereas before, he was always in those movies predominantly playing a persona. And I get that the other James Bonds have said that they feel like he did that persona better than them. And I still feel like it really summed up sort of the Kennedy era. Like it was like the perfect James Bond for that time period of post Eisenhower, Kennedy, even a little bit of LBJ, but it was really more of a persona. And I sort of had the problem with him as not James Brown, but James Bond.
Can you imagine Sean Connery playing James Brown? What a biopic that would make.
Or James Brown playing James Bond. I feel good. James Bond. Woo, James Bond. So the problem I had is that Sean Connery's version, and Sean Connery wasn't in charge of it, but those versions, he was invulnerable, just like Superman.
He was kind of larger than life in that regard a little bit.
And it didn't really have a lot of flaws, except for the flaws that we now look at retrospectively as to his behavior, looking at it with the eyes of like in 2020,
Sure, yeah.
the way, yeah. But I felt like the other characters that he played elsewhere felt more human and felt more realistic. Even Iron Man has more flaws than James Bond as played by Sean Connery.
I think that's a great way to put it, because I've never, we always have this idea about the people that we love to see on screen. We always have this idea about some of the actors that we idolize, and when you go back and look at their performances from 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, yes, there are issues and problems with sometimes some of the characterizations. But when you look at a character actor like Sean Connery, he was so brilliant. Now, I also have I have a few reservations with the person Sean Connery. He's kind of become synonymous in my brain as a bit of a jerk. Anytime that I think of Sean Connery, anytime somebody brings him up, I mean, yes, he has this incredible body of work behind him. As you say, The Untouchables. He played Indiana Jones's father in The Last Crusade. Hunt for Red October. Medicine Man. The Rock. he has these incredible performances with this uh, beautiful passion behind it, but at the same time, my mind always, tends to think of, oh, Sean Connery, he's the guy that's only out for himself, and some of these stories that I think of. Um, uh, Specifically about James Bond, like he had a huge falling out with one of the producers on one of the James Bond films, but he was under contract to finish a certain amount, and at one point he just kind of quit out of spite to one of the producers, and the only reason he came back to do a sixth James Bond film was because he got an incredible deal by MGM, a two-picture deal. Everything was already greenlit. I've heard stories of people meeting him over the years. He wasn't always the nicest of human beings to encounter. And, most recently, most famously, when Skyfall came out, it was the 50th year of James Bond, and every other character, or rather every other actor who had portrayed James Bond in the films, was willing to come out to the Oscars and do this big presentation, and Sean Connery was the only one who said, nope, I don't want to do it, I don't want to be part of it. I don't begrudge him. I don't begrudge him. He had already retired at that time in his life. He had put Hollywood and movie making behind him. He didn't want anything to do with the industry anymore. But it just seems, there's this part of me that can't help but think that he's a little ungrateful to some of the people, his fans, who helped make his career as great as it was. Jonathan, do you have a different perspective on it? Because there's a part of me, and you and I have talked on a personal level about people that we know, people in our lives that we know specifically together, and how like maybe my perception is a little bit skewed, and maybe you have a different take on this. Do you have any thoughts on Sean Connery being a bit of a curmudgeon?
Well, sure, yeah. First off, I think he's very Scottish. I mean, you can't undo the fact that he's from Scotland. I mean, they use the C word there, and it means something completely different than what it means in America. And so he's very Scottish in that way, both in the sense of like not taking any gruff or anything in the way of that, but also at the same time not thinking he's bigger than he is,
Mm.
and having sort of an irascibility to him. Like you said, he's very Scottish. I also think that like two thoughts. One, also it's very hard because he did that interview in Playboy where he talked about hitting his first wife,
Oh, this
and
I'm not familiar with.
yeah, she said that his first wife said that he hit her and beat her, and in Playboy he was famous for saying that he thinks that it's okay to sometimes hit women, but you have to give them an open slap, not a punch, like you would a man. Um,
Wow.
Second wife, who he married later on, he was married to for almost 45 years, and she never said anything like that. Not that those things excuse prior behavior, but it seemed like maybe that was something as to who he was when he was in his 20s. John Lennon, in his first marriage with Cynthia Lennon, was a different person and a different
Mm.
man than who he was when he was married to Yoko Ono. So, and again, I'm not saying, oh gosh, because you're in your 20s, it's okay to hit somebody. That is not what I'm
Well,
saying.
I think there's this
But
idea that exists that, when we hear negative things about certain people, we just allow that negativity to stay with us throughout, someone else's lives or careers or whatever. And we like to hang on to that and say, this is who this person is indefinitely. And there is no recompense. There is no repentance allowed for that, individual or organization or, whatever.
right, yes. And the other thing I wanted to say is that I felt that in its own way, the character of James Bond reminds me of the character of Doctor Who. There have been like 13 Doctor Who's, and there's sort of a fraternity of the people who've played Doctor Who. And because there's been like what, six people, as you said, that have played James Bond, six and a half if you include Woody Allen in that one movie where he was doing a
And then
parody
there
of
was
it.
like an American
There,
version that just didn't work.
yeah, there seems to be sort of a similar fraternity amongst most people that played James Bond that reminds me of the fraternity that exists between the people that played Doctor Who. The difference is, whereas James Bond sort of started out more British, it became very Hollywood, whereas Doctor Who has always remained very UK and British.
Again, that's an interesting take because I've never thought about it in terms of like, but I mean, yeah, you're right. There are a lot of like these fraternal, like if you, same thing for people who've played the president of the United States in any film. Like, I mean, that's a big club too. And there have been organizations of saying like, hey, if you've been like a major actor in a major film who has played this character, come on out and we'll kind of do like a benefit or fundraiser, something along those lines. And but yeah, that's true. And I know a lot of these actors like Daniel Craig and Pierce Brosnan, and of course Roger Moore was the first one to tragically pass away. Even down to Timothy Dalton and George Lazenby. They've all expressed their regards and their love of Sean Connery, and same thing with Roger Moore. It's one of those things that this is today. This is today, and Sean Connery leaves an incredible legacy behind him, mostly great. And as we've pointed out, there have been a few bumps in the road. But the question that I want to pose to you guys is what is your favorite Sean Connery performance or Sean Connery movie? And is there does any of this negativity affect the way that you view him as a human or as an actor or any of his movies or characters? I'd be very interested to know. So jump on down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys.
Two more things I want to add on quickly.
Yeah, please.
Subject one, because I was reading about his passing. His wife has come out and said that he actually had dementia, and that the dementia is the reason why he died, and that he'd been having that because he was 90, and that he'd been having it for at least 10 years. And his son has also confirmed that.
Interesting.
So, if he had it, who knows if he had it at 80, if it was there any point sooner. I read where he hated being in the League of Gentlemen. Ooh. That he hated that movie and he hated the director, and that's the reason why he stopped doing movies altogether. Yeah. Was because of that. And I could definitely see there's a difference between being the person who helps create a mythos and then being a fan who grew up on that mythos. And I could see where there'd be an avalanche or a huge gulf of difference between the person who helped make something like James Bond and then somebody else like the director of the League of Gentlemen who grew up on Marvel and DC and loves the mythos. But there'd be a huge difference because, for Sean Connery, he was never engaged in that sort of mythos. He was playing characters.
Yeah, that's true. It was a lot of it was just work for him. Yeah. He shows up to work. He does his thing. Oh, I'm playing this character today. Great. Like whether it's Darby O'Gill and the Little People, or Darby O'Gill from Darby O'Gill and Little People, or the whatever character. I have no idea. I saw the movie when it first came out, but the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, or literally anything in between, because he has this rich pantheon of experience and characters in films behind him.
Wasn't he in Highlander?
Say again?
Wasn't he in Highlander?
He was. Yes, he was in Highlander.
Where he got to be himself and just be Scottish.
Well, didn't he play a Spaniard though? Wasn't he technically a Spaniard or something?
Yeah. He had a tattoo of Scotland on his arm. And he said the most proud day of his life is when he got to go to the opening of the Scottish, sort of like their White House, the congressional thing. He was all in favor of Scotland being independent. So, I mean, the more I read about him, the more I went, oh, this guy's just very Scottish. And Scottish is a very certain type of person. And
yeah, no, he was very, very much a character on screen and off screen. He, as you say, like he had an insatiable love for his home country, for Scotland. So much so that even when he was playing a Russian general, Russian, maybe not general, but a submarine commander. Nope, I'm not going to change my accent. I'm Scottish. It is what it is. Okay, I'm going to be playing a Spaniard and Highlander. Nope, not going to change my accent. It is what it is. Oh, I'm playing Indiana Jones's father, an American. No, not going to change my my accent. It is what it is.
How much do you think Saturday Night Live changed our impression of Sean Connery?
Oh, with Daryl Hammond.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great question.
When it went from us recognizing, oh, this is something we see about Sean Connery that we didn't realize that we saw, but there it is, to then that started really changing our perception of it, because then that became more like the truth. Sort of like how Sarah Palin changed the more Tina Fey played.
Well, I tend to think of it in the same. Well, yeah, same thing with Tina Fey or even Will Ferrell playing W. I think that there's. I would like to think that our perception of Sean Connery didn't change that much. It was just that a new characterization was born, and so we have the man, the myth. And then we have this wacky character that has now become a huge part of pop culture. So, it becomes very popular to say, what was your mother doing last night, Trebek? And the same thing with W, he had his catchphrases that Will Ferrell popularized. Or even when Will Ferrell did... Chicago announcer, based... Harry Carey, thank you. When he was doing his Harry Carey, that's not who Harry Carey was. That was a gross exaggeration of who Harry Carey actually was. But that was just Will Ferrell's bizarre take on the character, and then that kind of became like the pop culture persona.
Similar like Chevy Chase with Gerald Ford.
Yeah, just a bumbling idiot, just falling over a Christmas tree.
Yep.
Same thing. Anyway, guys, so Sean Connery, he left an incredible legacy behind him. What are your favorite Sean Connery performances, movies? And do you have any specific memories of Sean Connery, maybe in pop culture? Has anyone actually been able to meet the man, shake his hand, or maybe take a photo with him? I would be very interested to know. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts there. All right, guys, we are going to move on to our next bit of movie news, and that is, it would appear that there is a very credible rumor running around the rumor mill right now that Quicksilver from the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, it is quite possible that Quicksilver is going to be making an appearance in the upcoming WandaVision television show. Now, this particular news comes to us from Comic Book Resource, which, sometimes Comic Book Resource is a credible source. Sometimes not so much. You kind of have to read between the lines a little bit. But here, it definitely would appear that the Funko Pop, if you're not familiar with Funko Pops, I'm just littered with them behind me. There's Dame Judi Dench. So these are the little Funko Pops, right? I was about to say Dame Judi Dench. The Funko Pop toy company, it appears that they may have spoiled a very interesting portion of the show. As this article points out, no official photos have been released yet, but for Emerald City Comic-Con, which is in Seattle, for 2021, Funko pretty much announced that they were planning on making a Vision and Quicksilver 2-pack Funko Pop collection collectible pop toy exclusive for Emerald City Comic-Con. So that begs the question, hang on a second, why are they putting out this 2-pack at this time? It very much seems like Quicksilver is going to be jumping back into the MCU. Jonathan, I have a few thoughts. I know you're an MCU fan. You've watched all the Iron Man and Avengers and Captain America movies. We share a similar love for this particular genre. I have some thoughts and feelings about this. I'm kind of really on board with this idea. If this rumor does in fact turn out to be true, it makes a lot of sense for Aaron Taylor Johnson, who played Quicksilver, to come back into the MCU. especially if anyone's familiar with the House of M storyline from the comics, where the Scarlet Witch kind of loses her mind. She goes crazy a little bit. She, Vision is killed in the comics, in the stories, and she can't mentally or emotionally handle this. So she just kind of imagines him back into existence. And not just that, she imagines children. She creates her own children because she's the Scarlet Witch and she can, I guess, kind of do that. So she manifested her own children in the comics, so much so that the X-Men had to come up and say, Wanda, you're hallucinating. You need to stop this. And she went nuts, right? As a lot of people have theorized, coming up in WandaVision, it seems like they may kind of be following a light version of this storyline, and it's very possible that she might manifest her dead brother back in the MCU. Jonathan, do you have any thoughts or theories about this?
When I first came across Quicksilver, it was actually in the comics, in the early comics. This would have been like in the 80s. And if I remember correctly, and I'm not saying I do, but I thought Quicksilver was with the Canadian team, because they had a Canadian team for a while that was like, they had the American team, which was the Marvel folks that you guys know now, because that's the event. But the Canada had its own team, and Quicksilver was a part of it. So that's how I first became aware of Quicksilver as a character. And then I think later on they did bring in Wanda as part of it. So I'm used to like the comic version from way back long ago, and then I haven't followed up that much with how that's changed once Marvel Cinematic Universe started sort of picking and choosing. Um, I think that they have to come up with characters, because now that first, oh, what is it that they call the first age of Marvel?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could call it that. I think they're referring to it as the Infinity Saga. The first 23 films is
Yeah,
generally regarded as the Infinity Saga. Yeah.
they, they need to find a way to generate and create new characters that are going to replace them. It almost reminds me of when Saturday Night Live's first cast left Saturday Night Live, and then you had all these new characters on Saturday Night Live, and there was doubts about whether or not it was going to continue. And it feels like that's what they have to do. They have to come up with more characters that can sort of replace those characters in the hearts and minds of the audience. So if it's Quicksilver and they feel that, and they're able to use that, especially like if they use that storyline that you were talking about, that sounds like a really good storyline to introduce or bring back Quicksilver, and something good that they can do with the witch.
Now, do you think it's possible that they're going to bring him back for good? Because, one of the things that the MCU is starting to be known for is its fake deaths. How many times has Loki died and come back to life?
20,
Say what?
23
23.
times.
Every single MCU film, he died and then came back to life. Every single one.
He
Quicksilver.
knew what Kenny is to South Park.
Yeah, kind of. In a way, he's become the Kenny of the MCU. But it seems that Quicksilver's the only person who's actually legitimately died. They finally found a way to kill off Thanos, as the big bad. Kind of as they should. They should not be bringing back Thanos at all, period. But there have been a few characters that you're just kind of like, oh no, did they die? And same thing with Vision. Vision died, came back to life, and then he died again, and now he's coming back in WandaVision again. I think that's going to be WandaVision's, the Scarlet Witch's projection of him. I think he's still permanently dead. But then again, who knows? Like, who knows? Do you think it's smart of them to kind of play around with this? Oh, they're not really dead, and if they do die, can they bring them back? Like, there's a big discussion right now about Robert Downey Jr. coming back to replay Iron Man in whatever form that takes. Is that a smart thing they should be playing around with?
Well, again, go to the comics, since that's the source. How many times, both in Marvel and in DC, have characters been killed only to be brought back? It feels like every time they needed to do a reboot in Marvel, every 5 to 10 years, they would kill off characters, say they were going to be dead, and then they would find a way to get them back. I remember when the big deal was they were going to kill Superman. They killed him, but they brought him back. So if the comics do that all the time, I guess there's no reason that the movies can't do it. Um, as long as they come up with justifications as much as the comics do. I mean, that's part of the reason why they had the Crisis on Infinite Earth, so that you could have Prime Earth versus all these other Earths, so that's how you have all these other stories. I mean, look at Guardians of the Galaxy. It looks like what's her name is dead, and there's a couple of the people that have died from that, but they're probably going to come back.
It's true.
It's not like they're trying to bring back Abraham Lincoln.
Wait, Abraham Lincoln was in the MCU?
Well, I was thinking about how they made the Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter movie.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Movie but but none of them tried to bring him back as a character. Like once he was dead in the movie, he was dead. So I think that there's something about superheroes and coming from comic books that you can bring them back to life many different ways. I mean, look how many times they killed Michael Myers in the Halloween.
And there's a new one coming out next year.
Right? And Jamie Lee Curtis's character has been killed at least twice in those movies, and she still comes back.
Still ticking. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What are your thoughts of the possibility of Quicksilver being reintroduced into the MCU? Does this get you excited? Are you over it? Are you somewhere in the middle? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys, moving on to our third bit of movie news today, and that is Wonder Woman 1984. You guys, it's heavy news because there's no news officially yet. And I guess that's the whole point of this particular article, is that the news is that there is no news. We know that Wonder Woman, I know, right? Wonder Woman 1984 was originally supposed to come out in the summer. It got pushed back to October. It got pushed back to December. It's in its third release date of its announcement. And there is a very real, very credible chance that it is going to be moved again back into 2021. Where in 2021? Who knows? So there's a lot going on with this. There's a whole domino effect with Wonder Woman 1984. Not just with the film itself, but in terms of movie theaters, what's going to happen to movie theaters, what's going to happen to other releases, and what's going to happen to movies that are currently in theaters, what's going to happen to the films coming out later next year, So Warner Brothers is faced with a really, they've had their backs put into the walls here. COVID has really done a number on the film industry, and that is an understatement. So the way I see it, I feel like Warner Brothers has a few options here. One, let the film come out on Christmas Day and let the cards fall with it where they may. Two, push it back to maybe like a February, March release, which isn't really going to do that much of a difference anyway. Three, push it back to a late summer release, or push it back to like an entire year from now, Christmas 2021. That's a very real possibility. Things that were not even on the table to be considered yesterday in a COVID world now might actually be considered and may be our new reality. Wonder Woman 1984 is a huge, huge tentpole film. There were a whole bunch of tentpole films for 2020. We had James Bond, No Time to Die. We had Black Widow. We have Wonder Woman, Tenet. There were a lot of tentpole films. Tenet being probably the biggest of any of these tentpole films that actually was released. It actually was released. It's been in theaters for almost 2 months, maybe 2.5 months now. And it has only amassed $350 million. Now, that sounds like a lot of money. $350 million sounds like a lot of money. But the studio still lost money. They needed a bare minimum of $600 million just to break even. That includes the cost that it took to make the movie, to advertise the movie, and then pay the movie theaters that are showing their film. They needed a minimum of $600 million just to break even. And they barely made half of that with $350 million. I would argue that Wonder Woman 1984 is a more popular IP I feel that it has a bigger fan base than Tenet would or does or did. I feel like Wonder Woman 1984 has the potential to make more money in a COVID world than Tenet did. But being the things as they are, the world that we live in, Christmas Day has always been a popular day for people to go to the movies. But we also know that cases of coronavirus are on the rise, both in the United States and outside of the United States. Europe has shut down in I believe 6 countries, Germany, France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and I want to say Poland, have closed their movie theaters. Done. That's a huge part of the box office, a potential box office. So, but then again, if the film is pushed back to next year, a year from now, 6 months from now, what implications does that mean for movie theaters in the here and now? How are they going to survive? And not just the theaters, but the studios themselves. Jonathan, this could not be more complicated, and more could not be riding on the shoulders of Wonder Woman 84. What are your pros and cons? How do you see how do you see the chips falling here, and what implications do you think are going to come out of it?
By the way, I thought you put that marvelously, Mike. You summed everything up in just the perfect way as to what's going on.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, every time I was about to think about making a point, you then went ahead and made it. I was like, well, there we go. Just said that.
Well, there it is.
I think once Tenet didn't make back its money or do well, that was it. It was done. I think every other movie theater went, movie production company went, we are not going to do that. I should say the distribution company said, we are not going to put stuff out just to have it disappear and not make its money back. Something like Wonder Woman 1984, as big as a tentpole as it is, as you said, there's nothing about it that is so intrinsic that it needs to be shown now, because even taking place back in 1984, you were not saying that this is a movie that is of our times. So you could wait an entire year to release it, and then it will still have the same impact that it's going to have, because there's still going to be people that are really interested in her, and there's still going to be kids that are going to be really interested, and there's going to be girls who are going to want to see it. So they could wait a year and make back their money. Otherwise, it's just a big write-up. I felt like everybody was watching to see how Christopher Nolan's Tenet went, especially because Christopher Nolan was so adamant about the movies being shown in the theaters the size that he wanted it to be, and it just didn't work. And I then think that every other distribution company that has the money in that is said, we're just going to wait. As far as what that does to movie theaters, that's a really great question, because I do live theater, and I've already come to acceptance that we are not going to do a lot of live performances until a year from now.
Yeah.
I think the vaccines come out by the middle of next year, and then it's going to take 2 or 3 months before most people are able to have the vaccine, at least certainly outside of the United States. I think you'll still have a lot of people in the United States who may not take the vaccine, which is going to create complications. But as such, what Dr. Fauci said is you're not going to be able to have people in groups. I know that like in Birmingham, England, they recently had live performances in a 1,000-seat theater, and they limited it to 200 people, and they sold out their entire weekend's worth of shows at 200 people each.
Wow.
And these are live theater, not movie theater. And people came out to the live theater crying because they missed live theater so much.
Wow.
So seeing live theater performance will come back when it is safe. I believe the same thing is going to happen to movies, is because even though the experience that you have when you're in your own place, or if you're with your roommate, or if you're with your family, that's one specific experience. But there's still something that can't be replaced about going into a movie theater surrounded by a movie screen that large, and just having that experience. That is part of human species. That's part of what we appreciate. That's not going to go away. but how everybody stays afloat between now and then is a completely different thing. Um,
I agree. I mean, you made a point earlier about there's nothing about the movie Wonder Woman 1984 that says it needs to come out on Christmas Day. I agree with everything of what you just said. But again, the implication is, if the movie theaters don't have anything to show, if they don't have anything big to show, are they going to even survive the pandemic? And if they don't, what's gonna, like, is the movie just gonna get shelved? Like, are they gonna release it on PVOD? Like, how's that gonna go?
there will be, similar to a lot of the theaters that are happening. Go back to Shakespeare, the Elizabethan theater after the plague. During the plague, the Black Plague, theater shut down for 5 years. There was no live performances for
Really?
5 years.
That I did not know. This is interesting.
Yeah. And then when it came back after the plague was gone, that's when Shakespeare and Elizabethan theater took off. So theater actually got better after the Black Plague than it did prior to that. During 1918, 1919, when we had the last virus that was here, the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
theater shut down for a year, year and a half. It came back. So movie theaters weren't around back then. They will come back. Now, who owns that movie theater and who's in charge of those movie theaters is a completely different thing. There will be massive movie chains that will go bankrupt and go under, but someone will buy them and there will be other stuff made. I think that in the future, movie theaters are going to almost try to be more like home theaters because they're giving you so much luxury. I saw one of the last movies I saw live, I saw in India. And in Bangalore, India, every chair was like a huge sit at home chair where you would be in this big cushions home seating chair. It had all this electrical stuff on it and it had waiters and you could order from the chair the food that you wanted and they would bring it to you. And I know they have some of that in America, but in India, it really was like they were. It almost felt like I was in a private box at a sporting event. And I think that that's where movie theaters are going to go more in a direction of. I think that you'll see more luxury being put into the movie theaters, and then you'll have sort of underground movie theaters that will sort of be the equivalent of off Broadway movie theaters,
Nope.
where people are just getting together to screen films. And people will go to movies. But I think that in the future, the economics of how it's all going to get done has to include that you will only show it in live for about a month, and then you're going to sell it to a streaming place, and that's going to affect things.
Huge.
I know that movie productions are still ongoing as well as TV productions. They are making a movie about an event that happened in my father's life, and they're going to start
That's
shooting
right. I
that.
forgot about this.
Yeah, they're going to start shooting that in November or December. So movies are starting to come up again. They're finding ways of how to do it and keep it COVID safe. The last episode of Fargo was shot under COVID conditions. So they're definitely finding ways as to how to do it. But once it gets done, it's going to have where it goes, how it goes is going to be different. But there will still always be movie theaters.
No,
Will there be a movie going out to 2,500 movie theaters? I don't know.
that's a fair point. Now, here's a question that I have for you, and not necessarily tied to Wonder Woman itself, but earlier you were saying, we love, we as human beings, we love the movie theater going experience. We just love theater in general. We want to go out. We need that social environment. Whatever form that takes, whatever that looks like, theater will come back, and probably stronger. I think this is a fear that I have, and I know that a lot of other people share the same fear. And let me talk specifically AMC theaters. AMC theaters has my favorite movie-going experience, period. It's the Dolby Cinema Theater. If you've been inside the theater, it's 4K projection. It's perfect surround sound. It's specifically designed to give you the perfect audible experience in a movie. And then just the chairs themselves, like the full recline. You're not too close to the people next to you. You're also not too far away. There's every single Dolby theater I've ever been in, there's not a single bad seat in the house. Even if you're front row all the way in the corner, still not a terrible seat, like we've come to know before. So I think a fear that I have, and I know that a lot of other people share with me in this, is that AMC Theaters is not looking good right now. They're $5 billion in debt, and that was pre-COVID. They went into COVID being $5 billion in debt. Now, it was a calculated risk. It was a smart risk because they upgraded all of their movie theaters, all of their amenities, and gave the customers a wonderful product. But then COVID hit, and they weren't able to make any of their money back. Second of all, they've already borrowed $50 million to try and keep themselves afloat, and it looks like they're going to be borrowing even more money to try and keep themselves afloat. In the event that AMC Theaters just goes kaput, what are the odds? What are the chances that somebody else is going to buy out? Like, of course, they're going to have to go bankrupt if everything just goes, tails up. They're going to have to file for bankruptcy, probably Chapter 7, and then all their properties just get sold off to the highest bidder. Do you think that a Dolby AMC theater experience could look the same as what we've come to expect over the past 2-3 years?
Yes, I think that I think that some people are going to. I don't know if somebody's going to buy all of it. I think that might even get broken up and sold into different things. But I definitely think you're going to see an even higher, more, even greater luxury style movie experience. You're going to see what that already was, and what you were describing at AMC will continue. Maybe not at all of those places, but at some, certainly in bigger cities. And then again, I think that there's going to be some stuff sold for parts. Yeah, I don't think AMC is going to continue and exist, but I do think that someone's going to end up buying them and someone's going to do something with them. If anything else, maybe it'll be somebody who's like a billionaire who already owns a baseball team and, thinks it would be fun to be able to own all the movie theaters.
We can only hope and dream, Jonathan. We can only hope and dream. Anyway, guys, big question is for you. I know we got off topic a little bit. We started with Wonder Woman and then we ended talking about like the future of movie theaters. But, that's the reality that we live in today. What do you think about Wonder Woman? Do you think that it's going to keep its Christmas Day release date and actually maybe have a chance at earning some money? Or do you think the smarter thing for them to do is push back 6 months to a year after things have started to become, hopefully, fingers crossed, a little bit back to normal? What are your thoughts? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know. All right, guys, we have one more bit of movie news to talk about, and that comes in the form of one of my favorite television shows of all time, Stranger Things. I mean, it's no secret that Stranger Things is one of my favorite shows of all time. Frasier is number 1. I would say The Twilight Zone is number 2, and Stranger Things is firmly in the 3 spot. I cannot love this show anymore if I tried. But as is the case with every production happening right now, season 4, the production for season 4 of Stranger Things has been delayed a little bit. I know, breaking news, right? But here's the thing. One of the executive producers here, let me bring this up in the article itself as we scroll down. One of the executive producers on Stranger Things, Sean Levy, had this to say about it. He said, "I'll just say the pandemic definitely massively delayed shooting, and therefore the launch of our current season 4, date still to be determined. But it impacted very positively by allowing the Duffer Brothers, for the first time ever, to write the entire season before we shoot it, and to have time to rewrite in a way that rarely had been, excuse me, I'm tripping all over my words. Give them to rewrite in a way that they rarely had before, so the quality of these screenplays are exceptional, maybe better than ever." This is executive producer Sean Levy. This sounds absolutely incredible, but it also comes with a caveat, Breaking news! Executive producer of a certain show says, they're positioned to be even better. Like, this is going to be the greatest thing that you have ever seen. So part of that is just kind of, it's a little bit of a no-brainer. Like, well, of course he's going to say that. Like, what else is he going to say? But it also raises a really interesting point. For the first time since season 1, the Duffer Brothers have had the time to finish writing their scripts and then go back and rewrite where rewrites need to be made. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that Stranger Things season 1, 2, and 3 are perfect from start to finish. In season 2, I have a massive problem with, was it episode 7, I think? Season 2, episode 7, I'm not going to spoil it. If you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It goes off on a side adventure that has nothing to do with, basically, has nothing to do with the rest of the show. I had a huge problem with that. I love everything else that they've done. Everything else. Almost without exception. But yeah, I mean, words like this kind of get me a little bit excited. Jonathan, do I have reason to be excited about this? Are you excited about this? And what do you think this means for the future of Stranger Things?
I think you definitely have a lot of reason to be excited about this. I actually think that it kind of reminds me, there's like this famous story that you hear a lot from musicians. They have their entire lifetime to make their first album, and then they have 6 months to make their second
Ooh,
one.
good point.
And, and then by the time they get to their third or fourth, they've sort of tapped out, and that's when you do your live version of your songs. And then maybe you come out with the album that's not like the rest, and then you have your greatest hits and you're done. As such, I think there's something about that once that first season was such a huge hit, they've sort of been on a treadmill since then, just getting this stuff out there. And I actually think that this much time will really help them really figure out where they want to go with this, the characters, the storyline, and really find a reason to justify in a great way everything that's happened. Because for me, I kind of felt I would have been happy with season 3 being the end, with the with 11 moving away, with the family and the family moving away, and then they had the post credit teaser in which the sheriff looks like he's still alive in Russia, and it was like, darn it, that means you have to come back, because I loved all 3 seasons, and I felt like it really, her driving away really sort of reached the end of it, like it told that story, completed its arc. So now you're on a new arc, and hopefully then this extra time they'll be able to come up with the Duffer Brothers will be able to come up with a really good storyline that is the new arc of everything, as opposed to we're just doing more because we are getting paid to do more, so we're going to keep doing more, and then Stranger Things jumps the shark. I think that this allows them the opportunity to not jump the shark and maybe have a 4th, 5th, and 6th season that will sort of be the equivalent of its second arc. So yeah, I think I mean, plot arc, story arc, character arc, and also you get to readdress the characters because now the actors themselves are 2 years older, and they're now all in the age of puberty because they're all
Yeah.
teenagers. So you get to really sort of look at them in a different way than looking at them as, hey, those are those cute, spunky kids that we love so much. Also, it allows them to come up with a better answer as to what the upside down is, what the demons are, the Demogorgon, and really figure out what all of this is and means and how it goes.
I
What do
know
you think?
that. Well, I know that this is the last season for Stranger Things. Like they've been, Netflix and the Duffer Brothers have been pretty open about saying like this is going to be their last hurrah. I think to your point as well. Like we definitely need some answers as to what is the upside down? What is it? Like how did that come to be? Or maybe not even how did that come to be, but like what is this parallel dimension? Like why does this exist, and what are these creatures, and why are these creatures, right? Why do they do what they do? But yes, same thing with your point about the kids growing up. We kind of get to same thing with the Harry Potter series. It starts off with this cutesy, oh hey, here's this kid who finds himself in a world of magic. Isn't that fun? And then as the movies progress, as they go on, come to find out, like these stories get pretty dark. So yes, with the aging of its cast, you can start doing some new interesting things. And they were supposed to go into production a year ago, or not quite a year ago, but they were supposed to have pretty much finished production by this point, and now they're only starting production for season 4. So I definitely think that they know where this wanted to go, but having this extra time, this extra COVID time, to rewrite your script and to really focus on how this is all going to culminate in the way that the best version that it could be. I don't see this as any other way but good. I mean, like I was saying before, like, what else is Sean Levy supposed to say? Like, hey, they've had more time to work on the script, so this is going to be even better than you thought. Well, yeah. I mean, like what do you expect him to say? But I also believe that there is a lot of truth in that. They are going to have more time to flesh out these characters, and to make things a little bit more sense and trim the fat where the fat needs to be trimmed. Like I was talking about season 2, episode 7. I hated that episode. It had nothing to do. It was an entire waste of an episode. It was a whole different story. It was a whole different program and idea that we didn't need to go down that road. And to your point of, season 3 kind of ending, with the family driving off to, was it Chicago? I think they moved.
Yeah,
driving off to Chicago and, kind of closing things up. It ended in a dark way. Like, even if they didn't have that end tag of, Hopper, being in some Russian prison or whatever, even if it didn't end with that tag, it still, for me, left a feeling of there's still unfinished business. I still felt like there was unfinished business. And it had nothing to do with the tags, or the setting up for whatever the next season was going to be. But I love the idea of more, and I wish that we were going to get a season 5 and a season 6. I love this show so much, but again, I think there's beauty in keeping it small and compact and saying, nope, we're going to tell the story that we want to tell. Like, everybody loves Breaking Bad so much, but it was perfect. It was 5 seasons. Keep it at 5, end it. The story you want to tell. Don't drag it out. And I think that's a killer for a lot of shows. I was huge into the Arrowverse. Go ahead.
Here's my prediction. I think you're right. There will not be a 5th and 6th season, but I think that there will be the setup for a movie.
Interesting.
Because they'll have something at the end there that they can turn into its own movie.
Do you think the movie is... Like, if they end up doing that, do you think that the movie would be the end of the story? Or do you think it will be an add-on adventure?
It depends on how much money it makes.
That's fair. That's a fair point. Jonathan, before we move on, last thoughts about Stranger Things.
I really enjoy Stranger Things, just like everybody else. And I had a chance to run into I'm so bad with names, but I had a chance to run into the guy who plays the kid with the hair, the gorgeous
Finn
hair,
Wolfhard?
No, he's got great hair, yes. The one who became buddies with the chubby kid in season 3.
Yes, him. He did all the, there was like a whole bunch of like commercials that he did, like for Verizon or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he's originally, and he trained at the DePaul Theater School, and a buddy of mine was his improv teacher.
Oh,
and
perfect.
So you run into him one day when we were both having food at the same Mexican restaurant, and so I knew that it was him. I went up and talked to him, introduced myself to him by saying, Nick John taught you, and so we talked about Nick John, and I just talked to him like I do any other sort of celebrity that I know or met or am acquainted with, which is mainly to treat them like a person rather than like a star. And it was a really good conversation, and it was clear how excited he was about doing the work that he was doing with Stranger Things. And that was really good to see and good to know, because sometimes you love a show and then you find out later on, oh my God, it was a nightmare to work on. But it's great to know that everybody who's working on that show really loves working on that show. And I think that comes across. And I think that that's going to be part of why I trust the Duffer Brothers to really get the most out of this fourth season and end it well if they're going to end it, or set it up well if they're going to have a movie.
I agree. And I love what you said about like having the opportunity to meet the actor who plays Dustin. It just came to mind.
Yes.
I had a very similar experience with Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC, from the band NSYNC. We went to we came from the same hometown, and so we had the same music teachers growing up. So when I had an opportunity to meet him, I'm like, hey, do you know this dude? He's like, hang on a second, who are you, and how do you know this guy from my past? So it was a really fun connection. But yeah, when you have that opportunity just to meet someone who's in the public eye and you get to connect on a human level as opposed to you're up here and I'm down here and oh you're wonderful, like it definitely humanizes people from their perspective as well, and definitely helps. So if anybody out there is watching this and you have a chance to meet a celebrity, be cool. Don't be weird about it. Anyway, guys, question for you is, how excited are you for Stranger Things Season 4? What are your thoughts and theories? Is there anything specific? Do you think, like, the story's going to go in a certain direction? Do you think that they should have ended it at Season 3? Or are you like me and you just want more? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. Okay, guys, so with all of that down and out of the way, you've been firing in some live questions all through the show, so now we're just going to go through and take some of your live questions.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You've been firing in some questions and comments all show long, so now let's get Jonathan up on screen here, and we'll just... we'll go through some of these comments one by one. Our first comment comes from Eric Sprague. And Eric says, great convo. I never saw The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Is it good? Eric, I have some very bad news for you. Jonathan, you want to take this one?
It's not. It's not good.
It's pretty bad. But you know, it is based on a comic book. It was a very popular comic and a graphic novel. I think it was a comic.
Yep. I read the graphic novel because I so disliked the movie. I was like, could this graphic novel be this bad? And then I read it. I was like, oh, this is so
it's
much
not that
better.
bad.
So read the graphic novel, skip the movie.
And that's the thing, like, it's a really cool premise. It's a really cool premise that should have made blockbuster money. But the writing was so bad, the characterizations were terrible, the special effects were completely abysmal. And I get it, it was 2003, but Lord of the Rings came out 2 years previous, and its special effects were off the charts. But they had the opportunity to do something really, really cool with that film, and they dropped the ball so bad. The director, did he ever direct again? Or it was a dual directors?
Not that I'm aware of. And I know that Sean Connery said that the director was he felt that the director was mentally ill or had not received a good education. He's just really crazy. So
wow,
but if
that's
you
too bad.
imagine him saying that in his Scottish accent, his Sean Connery way.
I think you're crazy.
Yeah, there you go.
You don't deserve to be a director anymore, Trebek.
Yes, there you go. Exactly. Well done. Good Sean Connery.
I've been working on it. So Eric Sprague goes on to say, maybe he skipped the appearance due to dementia. And yeah, to your point, that was something that I wasn't aware of. So when the Oscars wanted to bring all of the different James Bonds out, or the actors who play James Bond, there's a very real possibility, as both Jonathan and Eric have pointed out, you know, that very probably was due to his dementia that I was not made aware of. Eric goes on to say, Mike, don't forget Daryl Hammond's killer impressions on SNL Celebrity Jeopardy. Oh yes. You know, I kind of talked at length a little bit about how I feel those characterizations to be. Jonathan, what are your opinions on, you know, taking these very popular icons and doing silly renditions of them and potentially changing how we view those people?
You know, I think that if you're in the public eye, it's just a risk you have to take.
I agree. I agree. It's it's not one of those things that you sign up for, but it's kind of part of the job description in a weird way. Like if you want somebody that I follow on YouTube almost religiously, he's very famously said, if you want to go off and start your own YouTube channel, do it. We can only benefit from it. However, if you have an opinion on anything, not even an opinion, if you have a fact on anything, there will be someone somewhere who will challenge you on that. You can say, oh, the sky is blue. And, somebody on the other side of the world will say, well, it looks a little bit more rouge to me. So I disagree with you. And it's just, those are just the knocks that you have to take. Wherever you are, whatever opinions you have, somebody somewhere will disagree with you. And it just is what it is. So... all right, our last comment of the day comes from Robbie Spratt, very good friend of mine in Salt Lake City, Utah. Robbie Spratt says, my personal favorite Sean Connery performance is Indiana Jones from The Last Crusade. For me, that's the best film in the series, due largely to Connery. I agree wholeheartedly. It's not my favorite Indiana Jones film, but I definitely believe it is the best Indiana Jones film. Jonathan, your thoughts?
I agree completely. Sean Connery had a relationship with Harrison Ford because I read Harrison Ford's Twitter tribute to Sean Connery after Sean Connery passed, and it was really clear how much fun they had working together. And there was something about Sean Connery that he could get underneath Harrison Ford and make Harrison Ford, or the character that he was playing, Indiana Jones, look like a skirmish little boy, because it's hard to get sort of underneath that persona that Harrison Ford puts up, but he was able to do that. He was either able to sometimes sort of tease him and make him look like a gawky little boy, or he punish him and make him have to really get into play with it. It was like, for me, I liked Indiana Jones movies better after they added Sean Connery, because again, it humanized the character versus making him the Superman archaeologist.
That's a great point. I never thought about that, but yeah, it does humanize Indiana Jones a lot. I remember as a child growing up watching, all the films. For whatever reason, I stuck to this opinion because there was that flashback scene at the very beginning of Last Crusade, and I said, to everybody who would hear my voice, that should have been the first movie because there was a flashback scene, and that's how we know the character of it. I was like, yeah, what did I know back in 1989? I was just an idiot back then. But yeah, I agree. Like just having that human, I guess you could call it connection. Especially between the two characters, but even from the audience perspective, like that meant a lot. That was one more entry point that we didn't know that we needed into the character of Indiana Jones. That just makes him that much richer of a character. And I'm sorry to disagree with you, Jonathan, but there were no movies past Crusade. Like that was the last one, right?
I think so. Okay. Yeah.
No, I know that Indiana Jones 5.
But they didn't.
Say what now?
They're talking about making another one, but they didn't.
Right, yeah. I know Indiana Jones 5 is coming out, which begs the question, why isn't there a 4? The greatest mystery of the world. But, I guess we'll have to figure that out. Ladies and gentlemen, this comes to a close. I think that was our last comment of the day. This is pretty much going to end out the show. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day, out of your busy schedule. Today is a weird, wacky day for a lot of people. We're not going to talk about it, but we all know what I'm referencing.
I do want to say one thing. I think that the Indiana Jones 4 movie stars Quicksilver, and it takes place in the Upside Down.
I almost spit my drink all over my computer. I'm sipping here on seltzer water, and I almost just exploded all over my computer just as you said that. I think that is that's the new hashtag that we should start. That's the new rumor that we need to start putting out there.
Right?
I would both love and hate to see that. It would be a love-hate relationship,
Right.
Just the best.
Indiana Jones, Quicksilver, and 11, all in the Upside Down.
Indiana, Quicksilver.
Ah, nice. Yes.
Nailed it. Jonathan, thanks so much for being here. Tell us about your upcoming projects and where people can find you online.
Online at Facebook, which is Jonathan Pitts. I have my own website, which is jonathanpittsimprov.com. It took me a while to come up with the name for that website.
It's a complicated one.
Yeah, I really struggled over that one. And then I'm teaching improv workshops for a online conservatory training center called Now Learn This. So I teach improv workshops for them. And then I've also been performing improv online through. You can see that my Twitter is at jpits_28 and then also my Instagram, because I feel like I got to name all these things.
List them off, man. List them off.
And the odd thing is Pitts 5038 means nothing to me because I don't know. It was like 5038 is what they gave it to me when I had Instagram. It doesn't mean anything.
Can you change it at all? Like if you want to?
I would like to. I'm sure you can. I've probably been too middle-aged to look at it, but the thing I thought is wait a minute. If I'm Pitts 5038, was there 5037 that are on Instagram?
5,037 others, my friend.
That's a lot of Pitts.
You're not that original. Sorry. As someone with the name Mike Brown, I hate to break it to you, but it's not that original.
Right. Yes,
Sorry.
It isn't.
Those are the breaks we take.
If you married my sister, she would be Brown Pitts.
I really wanted a witty retort to that, but I had nothing. That just the imagery, the Brown Pitt. I don't even know your sister. So this
and if you had kids, they would probably murder you in your sleep for naming them Brown Pitts.
Brown Pitts. Well, I mean, hey, it is what it is. Like, I know people with the last name Gross. I know people with the last name Butts. I mean, if they were to get married, they would be Gross Butts.
Right? And that's why I've never married anybody named Gross or Butts, because they need to have Gross Pitts or Butt Pitts, which
Pit Butts?
is just, yeah,
Come
right.
on, man.
There's a lot of things put into the world. So I try to stay away from that. So that's why you can't marry my sister, Mike. I like you. I care about you. I think you're a great guy, but for the sake of your children that you're not going to have, you can't marry my sister.
Well, she's going to have to get through my girlfriend first. So, I mean, well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Anyway, Jonathan, thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you so much for spending time with us and for exploring with us a little bit of your expertise.
Well, and thank you very much for inviting me, and it's great to see you. Continue to stay healthy. All the best to you and your girlfriend.
Oh, likewise, my friend. All right, guys, if you like this video, click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. And if you really, really like this video, click share, because that is exactly what the late, great Sean Connery would want you to do. All right, guys, my name is Mr. Mike Brown. This has Gotta Love Them Movies, your daily dose of movie news. Thank you so much for showing up and being part of the conversation today. Guys, we live in a weird, crazy world where everybody has their own thoughts and ideas and opinions, and sometimes those thoughts and ideas and opinions clash. So if you have an opportunity to spread a little bit of kindness in the world today, please take that opportunity. Please speak kind words to each other. And until tomorrow, have a most beautiful evening.